Welcome back, everybody, to the sixth episode of the Tiger View podcast. Man, Dawson, it's another week. It's already gone by, another week of Clemson athletics. And I mean, we're getting closer and closer towards the end of the athletic season. So, yeah, here we are with the sixth episode already.
Yeah, it kind of feels crazy that we're this far into it. It just doesn't feel real. We're closing towards the end of baseball season. Football's pretty much wrapped up for the summer until they start back in July. But hey, we're gonna keep turning out episodes. So
That's right. We got some things we're gonna go over today. So as always, we're gonna start with the baseball series, and then we'll roll into the softball series, and then we also have some new men's and women's basketball transfers, and then we're gonna touch on a little bit with the NFL draft, and then we'll roll back over to baseball, talking some postseason stuff, and then also we're gonna talk on the Savannah Bananas game that went down in Death Valley last night and then touch up on a little on lacrosse, and then just the upcoming week schedule. But yeah, first, like we always do, going into the baseball series, man, got so many things to talk on, just different ways to go about it. But for those who might have not kept up with it, Clemson ended up getting swept by number 25 NC State. Game one, 14-4 in 8 innings, 8-3, and then the finale on Saturday, 4-1. So Dawson, how you want to go about this, man? Where you want to start at?
it's tough. I feel like everything that we've kind of been warning people about for the last couple of weeks kind of finally, took life. Is, the lack of hitting. We weren't really hitting at a high clip. Definitely struggling with runners on. And Aiden Canuck looked human. He really did. I mean, he got punished Thursday night. I'm not gonna be somebody who just, is saying now we have a game one pitching problem because obviously we don't. That is extremely uncharacteristic out of Aiden Canuck. I think the rest of the team will tell you that. So for him, I'm not really worried too much about it. It's just an off game. You had to, it's gonna happen. Stuff like that's gonna happen. All you gotta do is have to shake it off now. But I mean, really, is NC State saw him really well. It seemed like every pitch they saw the seams off of it. It was foul balls, base hits, or bombs. They were just hitting at such a high percentage. And quite frankly, we were doing the opposite. Struck out way too many times. On the game one, game one we struck out 12 times in that game. I mean, that's too high. We had 31 at bats, struck out 12 times. That's more than a little over 1 in 3 of our batters struck out. And really, we couldn't find hits. We only had one guy who had more than one hit, and that's Andrew Chufo in game one. There were a bunch of other guys, with one hit, a lot of strikeouts though, overall, which is not what you want to see this late in the season.
Yeah, I mean, tough weekend for the Tigers. Their record is now 36-10 overall, and then 13-8 in the ACC, which isn't too bad. But we were ranked number two coming in this week. But you got to think that we'll kind of drop a little bit in those polls. But I mean, that's baseball, man. You play a hot NC State team in Raleigh. I mean, like you were saying, they showed the Aiden Canucks human, and I mean, um, he still had a great season. That was only his first loss of the season. So I mean. Like we always say, it's baseball and things are bound to happen. You're not always going to be perfect. But I want to talk about just the missed opportunities of runners on base, especially in scoring position. I just feel like that's something we've been hitting on time and time again, and it's happening time and time again. So I'm just hoping those guys can figure that out because I mean that's how you win ball games. You got to get hits when it matters the most. Whenever you get guys on base, you got to get them in and drive in those runs. And I mean, whenever you're not doing that, obviously you're going to lose games like you did this past weekend in Raleigh.
I will like to say, we did see Michael Gillen come out in the first game and he pitched an inning, gave up a hit, but gave up no runs and struck a guy out. So I mean, I guess that's one positive takeaway. If you want to look at some bullpen numbers, outside of Canuck, Justin LeGarrette gives up 4 earned runs, but everyone else combines for just 2 earned runs out of 3 pitchers, which is, it's not terrible, but at that point the game does feel out of reach. And then, Justin LeGarrette comes in and can't even go a full inning before NC State run rules us.
Yeah, just another opportunity from McGurnick that's kind of felt like another disappointment. I mean, like you said, NC State scoring those runs to walk it off in run rule fashion in 8 innings in that first game. But like how you touched on Michael Gillen, I know we kind of touched on him and how we would be expecting his appearance, and I like what I saw out of him. It's something positive out of kind of a negative weekend. So definitely like seeing Gillen back on the mound. And then another positive thing I kind of want to touch on is Collin Priest. He's been swinging the bat really good. He homered in the first 2 games of the series, and now he's also at 10 on the year. And that first one he hit in game one, I mean. That was a rope, man. And I mean, just each time, or it might have been the second game, but I mean, each time he gets a hold of the ball, man, like watch out, because I mean that thing's going. I think that home run he hit, it was about 116 out the bat. I'm pretty sure, but
Mhm.
I mean, just a big, strong guy who can really launch the balls whenever he gets a hold of them.
Yeah, his numbers have climbed a lot. I think early, um, obviously in the Big Ten, I don't think you see the type of arms that you will see in the ACC consistently, and especially early in the year that he saw when we went down to Texas. So I think it has taken him some time, and we have to remember, I mean, this kid's a sophomore. He's not, brought in here as a junior or a senior. He was a freshman last year, and although he was known for his power hitting and did win, get put on some high list over there in the Big Ten, he's a young guy and he's still adjusting, and this year it's taken him some time to kind of see the ball and understand pitches, but now he's up above I believe he's at the 10 home run mark now. So, and his numbers are climbing. He's really been a bright spot late in this season for us, I think.
Yeah, I mean, definitely love to see that out of Colin, with him being in that cleanup spot. But another thing I want to touch on, Drew Titsworth, he got his second start on the mound in game 2 of the series. Just another shot of proving what he can do. And I mean, he did all right. And then also BJ Bailey starting on that last game of the series, and he went for a little bit. I really didn't get to catch much of that game 3, but I did see where he did go a little bit longer in that game, which I mean, you like to see out of BJ, and I mean any of those guys who were pitching.
Yeah, and people do want to focus, especially in games, 2 and 3. They do want to focus on pitching, and everyone wants to be really critical in pitching, which I could see why that. I'm not gonna get upset at anyone for questioning that, but recently it's felt like it hasn't been our pitching this, kind of been letting us down, especially this weekend. I mean, we just left so many guys on base to where, even in game 2, Drew Titsworth, he only goes 4 innings and he gives up 4 earned runs. But honestly, if you give up 4 earned runs, you still give yourself a chance to win the game. And obviously, later in the game, I've been a big fan of TP Wentworth, but I just don't know if that's the spot there for him. I do know Eric Bakich has wanted to start putting him in more high leverage situations. And similarly, Chance Fitzgerald got put in a big situation late in that game, but I just don't think that was the right time. I think that, unless something was going on, you kind of should have gone all in on getting that win in game 2 so you could force the rubber match and not try to experiment with a freshman there.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, another tough weekend in Raleigh, but the Tigers got to clean up some stuff quick as they'll be heading to Tallahassee this coming up weekend as they face another hot team in the ACC, especially in Florida State. So just kind of some stuff those guys need to clean up. And I mean, like we always say, it's baseball, but I mean, hoping they can kind of turn things around once we start getting closer to the end of this regular season and into postseason play, which we're going to hit on here soon later on in the episode. But now what I want to talk about is softball, man. Softball's been hot. They've been racking up some wins, and they went to Georgia Tech this weekend. They swept them. So game 1 they won 6-2, and then game 2, they ended up just dominating them all around. 19 to nothing win in 5 innings, and then 8-2 win earlier today. And this is the 100th ACC win in program history, and they now sit at 41-12 overall, and then 19-5 in the ACC. So, just what are your thoughts about the softball team right now, man? They're good to watch.
Yeah, I feel like we've said it all years to where early on it felt, man, was this going to be a rebuilding year? What were we doing as far as players? We knew we had a lot of young girls out there, but I think they trusted the process. They realized that, they knew how to score runs. That was never an issue. It was figuring out ways to win. And that is a difference, is so many people mistake high scoring offenses and young teams for understanding how to win. the team that looks the brightest and shows out the best does not always win. It's the team with veterans, with calmness, with good coaches that finds ways to win. And that's what it's taken this year for this softball team is, that young offense and that young superpower combined with the great coaching that they have. And now, as the season's gone on, you've seen it that now they've honed in on their craft. They're learning how to win, and I think they're going to be in a really good spot come regional time.
Yeah, you talk about the young talent. In today's game, actually, two home runs from both Marion Collins and Macey Cintron. And Macey Cintron, she broke a record today. She now holds the record for the most RBIs as a freshman, and she passed one of those Clemson greats and Valerie Cagle. So definitely love seeing that. And I mean, just that whole nucleus of that freshman class, man, they're gonna be pretty special. And you're already seeing it right out the gate in their first season as a Tiger. Um,
Yeah, I think this whole
yeah.
season, just says so much about that coaching staff there. Is forever it did feel like we just had stacked roster or stacked team after team, especially with Valerie Cagle, being one of the best softball players that I've personally ever seen. And this year we knew things were going to be a little different. And to see the coaching staff there be able to grow this team and prepare them in ways that a lot of us probably didn't see coming out of opening weekend for them. It's been great to see.
Yeah, definitely. And you also can't forget about those veterans as well. Maddie Moore, she's been swinging a hot bat too, belting some over the fence. And then also, I seen a play she made. It was a diving play. She ended up making the out and then throwing it first. Just, I mean, all around player, Maddie Moore. She can do it up at the plate and then also in the field. So, I mean, just that combined with like the young talent we've been talking about. I have a feeling they're hot right now. I mean, I got a feeling they can kind of go far and hopefully in the ACC tournament and then also coming up in the NCAA tournament with hopes of hosting a regional, which I think we have good chances of doing. But now the softball team awaits their seeding for the ACC tournament. The regular season is done with now, and the ACC tournament this year is being hosted by Boston College, and that tournament will run from May the 7th to May the 10th. So can't wait for them to get back out there, get a little break, but just hope that hot start or that hot finish to the regular season goes into postseason play with them.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, touching on the men's and women's basketball transfers, it seems like each week we keep getting another transfer. So, for the men's, we get Justin Porter from Middle Tennessee State University, and then for women's, we get Morgan Lee from Morris College, and then this is also six transfers for each the men and women's team. And I mean, Coach Poppy and Coach Brownell, they keep doing it, and man. They keep cooking and just building up those teams for next season. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I know as far as the men's transfer, Justine Porter, I mean, he is a baller. I mean, he is, I spoke before, we wanted to get a point guard that was ball dominant and being able to play like Chase Hunter. This kid is just what we needed. Averaging 15, a little over 15 points per game, 2.9 rebounds and one assist at Middle Tennessee. A lot of people are going to look at that one assist and say he doesn't pass the ball. He doesn't make plays for his teammates, but I would say at a spot where he was at, he is the main scorer. That 15 points tells you that. So he had to go out there and be Superman on that Middle Tennessee team. When he gets here, he's going to have so many more weapons to work with, and I really do think that him being a combo guard combined with Brad's ability to get the best out of his guards, I think that's going to play just perfectly into Clemson's season. He jumped his 3-point percentaging up from 2023 to 2024. His free throws and his field goals all went up from just 2 years ago. So I would really look for him to grow a little bit more in that range. And just overall, I am hyped about him. He's probably the most excited I've been about a transfer since either RJ Godfrey probably came back or Nick Davidson.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm excited for basketball season next year, especially with the women's as well. Coach Poppy getting Morgan Lee. She's a 6'5" center, so she's a pretty big girl. So I'm just hoping that can help with Coach Poppy with what he's been doing, building that team up. And I mean, it's going to be an exciting year next year in Little John. No doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, even Justin, when he's a JUCO product. So before he played at Middle Tennessee, he was a big time scorer there. He was scoring a little over 17 points with 3 assists. So it seems like at all levels that he's played at, he's been able to find and get a bucket. So I mean, if he can match anywhere, I mean, I don't anticipate he'll be scoring 15 or 16 in our system. That's just not the way things are set up right now, I don't believe. But if he's able to match those numbers, I really got to say Brad's going to be earning every penny of that contract if he can pull this off.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, just ready for basketball next season, especially with all these transfers coming in from both the men's and women's side. But shifting gears now, I kind of want to go into some NFL draft talk. Just first with the Clemson guys, and then we'll go one by one and talk about them. So Barrett Carter, he got drafted to the Bengals in the fourth round at pick 199. I feel like this is just a perfect fit for Barrett. It seems like a bunch of Clemson guys always end up at the Bengals, so I'm just glad that he'll be teaming up with some of those guys who have already been there, establishing their pro careers.
Yeah, I do like the spot that he's going in fourth round is probably about right for him, but just the only thing that I can have in my mind is, really underachieved, I believe, in his career at Clemson. And that is not a knock at him at all. That is not a knock at him. That is not a knock at the program, but you can't help but feel like the five-star coming out of high school that he was, an elite talent who in 2022, we saw it early on. He committed to play here under Brett Venables. And, when Brett left, he could have had the option to decommit or jump ship with Brett or go somewhere else, but no, he stuck in it, and he played with Wes Goodwin, who you know people can have their opinions on him. My personal opinion is that he just was not prepped for the job, and I really do feel like Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter as well, and Wade Woodaz and guys like that, they really could have had better careers at Clemson. They really could have been better players. And I would even go back to 2023, right after the Duke game, when Barrett Carter said that it just didn't feel like the defense was in shape. I mean, that can't happen, especially if for at the time he was the junior linebacker that he was. He has to be a leader in that moment, to where he has to make sure that his guys are in game shape. But nevertheless, Barrett Carter is, in my opinion, an elite talent. I think he's got a lot of fundamental work to clean up as far as, pursuit and tackling. I do think that's got to be cleaned up, but I'm glad that he's going to get his shot with a great organization like the Bengals.
Yeah, you talk about him being developed under Wes Goodwin. I just part of me wishes he had one more year of eligibility just so I could see what Tom Allen could do with him, and then also Ben Bowler stepping in that bigger role, being a linebackers coach. But yeah, I mean, if he just had that one more year with Tom Allen, I really think things could have turned out better for him. But I mean, still, being a fourth round pick to the Bengals, I mean, that's still not bad though.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving along now, R.J. Mickens, he got drafted to the Chargers in the sixth round, pick 214. I was hearing a bunch of buzz about R.J. Mickens, how he was a sleeper pick, and I mean, I can't help but agree. So, yeah, I feel like the Chargers are getting a steal here in that sixth round pick for R.J. Mickens.
Yeah, I really liked RJ. I mean, I guess the biggest knocks on him, NFL scouts are going to have is probably a little bit to do with size, his age, and how long it has taken him to come along because he has grown so much from whenever he started. And I he's one of those guys that came in that I believe he came in 2020 or 2021, correct? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
he's a fifth year, so yeah. Unfortunately, he's just one of those guys that kind of got clumped into that West Goodwin defense and that little slump of Clemson, to where it really felt like if he would have been on a better defense or a better team, maybe he would have had a lot more opportunities to shine. But he's happy. I believe he's happy where he's at. We're happy for him. In my opinion, he's one of the most underrated Clemson stars of the last few years. I remember in 2022 him making the pick against Syracuse to close that game out, all the way up until this year. Well, we were kind of looking at him and saying, okay, it's your time to be a leader. Makuba's gone, Khalil Barnes, we need you to lead him. And Andrew, it seems like RJ Mickens answered the call all year. He was one of the most dependable tacklers, a ball hawk, smart coverage guy. And I'm really am, shocked that it took them so long to get him off the draft board. But once again, all you need is an opportunity. It doesn't matter where you go. Tom Brady went and, picked whatever. He talks about it often. It's not about where you get picked, it's about where you end up.
Yeah, exactly right. Just excited to see RJ develop in the Chargers organization and see if he can do something there. And then now another big one, Phil Maffa, he got drafted to the Dallas Cowboys in the seventh round at pick 239. Yeah, I mean, Cowboys are kind of known for developing running backs, so we'll see what Phil can do in old Dallas. So yeah, I'm excited for this pick, him going to the Cowboys.
Yeah, Phil, when he is at full health and he's not, dealing with a really banged up shoulder, he is a great player. He gets downhill quick. He can level you. I don't think, he's not going to be an every down back for, the Cowboys by any means. And, you know, who knows, he might not even make the team being in the seventh round, but as long as he's a healthy player, he's going to give team shots. He can come in on those short yardage downs and pick up yards for you. As long as he is in a good spot mentally and a good spot physically, he is a really fantastic talent. And in Dallas, if they can keep him healthy, they got a really big steal there late in the draft.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just keeping him healthy is the big thing. I know later on in the season he had that issues with the shoulder, and it just seemed to brought him down a little bit. But yeah, if he can stay healthy, Moff is definitely a force to be reckoned with in the backfield.
Yeah.
Now another one that came out the other day, Jake Brennan still he didn't get drafted, but he got signed as an undrafted free agent to the Chiefs. So yeah, got a little pickup for the Chiefs. Tight end room there. Yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
I do like him going to the Chiefs. That's a really strong organization. And, if things play out, if he plays his cards well and works hard, puts his head down, he could be lying in wait for when Travis Kelce kicks the bucket, in football terms. And I think he really does fit the Chiefs mold. He's not a heavy run blocker. He's much more of a pass catching tight end. He can run all the routes on the route tree. I think his problem is just become a really a fundamental thing is he really underachieved, in my opinion, most of his Clemson career. Not to say that he's not a hard worker at all. I'm not, trying to put that out, but it did feel like he left a lot on the plate. There were plenty of moments that I could break down and look at and say, man, we wish we would have gotten more out of Brenning Stool here. And, once again, I think he is a bit of a victim of the Clemson slump. He had to play with DJ, and DJ, wasn't an easy quarterback at all to work with. So Jake sat behind Davis Allen, I believe, in his freshman year. I believe it would have been 2021 or 22, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he sat behind Davis Allen, and had to deal with DJ, and then even 2023, Cade's freshman year, you're having to deal with a first year starting quarterback who really is trying to find himself. And even this year is where, we kind of saw Jake Brenningstool really start to play pretty well, but there were just so many moments that I could look back on and just say, feel like he left so much on the field. He's almost too talented of a tight end to have performed like he did. I thought he had the intangibles to be a top five tight end or a top three tight end in Clemson history, me personally. But that's not always the way the cookie crumbles. So
Yeah, like I was saying, he went to the Chiefs, and I feel like the Chiefs do a great job of developing tight ends, especially like you said with Travis Kelce. You never know when he's going to call it quits, and the Chiefs are going to need another tight end to look on. But now, kind of shifting gears away from the Clemson guys, I kind of just want to talk about the draft for a minute in general. Cam Ward obviously going number one overall to the Titans, but I think just the trade of the night obviously was the Jaguars trading up to pick number two from the Browns and grabbing Travis Hunter. So definitely a weapon for Trevor Lawrence to use, and I guess he'll play two sides of the ball. I don't know. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, just your thoughts on Travis Hunter going to the Jags.
yeah, I mean, I think he's a guy like Travis Hunter, he's too talented to pass up on. If you've got a chance to get him, you've got to jump on him. Um, as far as him playing both sides of the ball, I would imagine that he will try, but it won't be full time on both sides. He's gonna have to, make some decisions here. Maybe he plays, 70% on offense, 30% on defense, which is, fine. If he comes in and selects situations on defense, I believe he would want to play receiver first, with Trevor Lawrence being on the offense and, the Jaguars needing to buff up their wide receiver room. I do see a lot of people complaining that the Jags didn't go for a defensive guy in the first round, or they didn't go for the O line. And I hear that and I understand that. But when the NFL has now moved into a space where it is so offense oriented, to where now everyone's wanting to put up 1,000 points a game. Everyone's wanting to have, quarterbacks have big games, and Trevor Lawrence. You can look at probably thousands of instances in his career so far where his receivers have totally let him down. Don't get me wrong, he has not lived up to the expectations. I'm not gonna, try to hide it and act like that he's been this, amazing quarterback so far, but he has had a lot of instances where his receivers have just dropped the ball or just, miscommunications. And, Brian Thomas this year was just amazing for them. If they compare Brian Thomas with Travis Hunter and get that offense rolling a little bit, that's going to help their defense in turn because their defense won't have to be on their heels so much on the game.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to mention Brian Thomas too, but just him and Travis Hunter pairing up now to be that little duo of wide receiver cores is definitely important for Trevor and just his quarterback play. But also, I kind of want to say that I feel like another winner of draft night, as far as the Jags goes, another Clemson great, which is Travis Etienne. The Jaguars originally had the number 5 pick, and obviously Travis Hunter most likely would have been well gone. After that pick or before that pick. And with the Jaguars trading up to get him at 2, I think that's huge because I was seeing in some mock drafts that the Jags were thinking about taking Ashton Genty. So just definitely a win for Travis Etienne in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, truthfully, I would not have been surprised if the Jags are ready to move on from Travis Etienne, to tell you the truth. I mean, Travis, he gave you a lot of production in 22 when they made their playoff run. But really, since then, he has dealt with injury. But at the end of the day, these are businesses. They don't care. You're not going to get an excuse if you're injured. They're just going to move on with you. And his history, he had a Liz Frank injury early on in his career. He had injuries last year, and especially with um, the other running back that the Jags have, Tank. I'm
Tank
totally blanking on.
Bisbee.
It might be Bigsby. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, with him being able to give them production, I think it's going to be a do or die year for Travis Etienne, really, if he's going to stay on this Jags roster.
Yeah, we're definitely root for Travis, him being an old Clemson guy. But another thing I want to touch on, it was kind of a big story of the draft is Shedeur Sanders. So he finally gets drafted in the 5th round to the Cleveland Browns, who already took Dylan Gabriel a round or two before that, which is kind of questionable to me. But yeah, Shedeur ends up going 5th round to the Browns, and also just the stuff about the prank call is just crazy to me. So just what are your thoughts about that whole situation?
Yeah, I thought I really didn't think we could get through this long without talking about Shedeur Sanders and his draft. It felt like, truthfully, everyone in the world was making a huge deal about it. ESPN was taking so many moments away from kids and their families early on to talk about Shador, frankly. It felt like every pick they were looking to talk about Shador rather than, you know, honoring the young men on the stage that were getting picked and, talking about their success and their families. It felt like we were making the draft about one person. And I just think that was wrong the way that the ESPN and the media conducted themselves throughout that whole draft night. I don't think it was an issue within the NFL. It was widely documented that Shadir Sanders had a bad attitude, really, and was really unprepared at these interviews and just acted frankly the entire year like he was better than everyone. When you send a message to say that, oh, we are only going to go to certain teams because that's how good we are, there's a lot of teams that are going to be seriously turned off by that. And this is another one of those situations. I believe I was telling somebody that it almost feels like, a lot of times who your daddy is matters in this kind of business. But in this kind of situation, it felt like his daddy's name hurt him. If his nice name would not have been Sanders and he would not have had the antics and the perfect timing and the watch stuff following around him, it feels like he would have gotten drafted a lot sooner if he would have just kept his mouth shut and just played football and really conducted himself in a manner to where, he was able to present himself to NFL GMs as a more humble player ready to work.
Yeah, talking about the media coverage on him, like I said, he got drafted in the fifth round, but whenever he got drafted, it just felt like they took a little bit longer than usual with him. Like it's the fifth round. Like usually they're just briefly talking about guys and moving on, but I mean they took forever talking about him. I mean, and guys were getting drafted and drafted, and they just couldn't get off the topic. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more about how the media covered that. Which I mean, you kind of expected it though, in reality.
Yeah, and I do want to say also, I'm glad to know it wasn't you who prank called him uh, the other day. I'm real, I was a little worried at first. I was like, man, that voice kind of sounded like Gavin.
No. No, yeah, no, that was crazy to me. But some more news has came out about that. It was like the Falcons, was it defensive
Yeah,
coordinator? Like his son or
defensive
whatever.
coordinator's son.
Yeah. But apparently the NFL is gonna investigate it, and the guy has apologized to Shadur and the family from what I've heard today and what I've gathered. So yeah, just a crazy situation in general.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, is it a rude thing to do? Yeah. Is it, you know, was it funny? I mean, it depends on how you look at it. Me personally, don't hold it against me. I thought it was a funny situation. Now, if you're on Shadur's side and you're on the side of the NFL, no, I mean that's not something to joke about. But at the end of the day, it's really no harm, no foul. Nobody's getting hurt over it. Was it a stupid thing that the kid did? Yes, but I mean, ultimately, it isn't like he murdered somebody. It was a simple prank call. And I guess the only thing that the NFL could be investigating is how he got the number. Maybe he looked on his dad's computer because his dad probably had connections because he was the DC, so he probably was in a lot of those draft rooms and talking and was able to see Shadur's number. So I guess the only investigation would be is how he got the number. I mean, outside of that, it doesn't really seem like anything legally can be done because it wasn't an illegal. Getting prank called is not illegal. Rude is one thing, but in terms of legality and things that they actually can do, there's probably not much that I could see that would be on the table for that.
Yeah, definitely. Can't wait to hear more about that situation, just how it ended up. But moving back to baseball now, I kind of want to talk on some postseason stuff and a little bit of expectations that we were thinking of. But I just want to first start with the ACC tournament. I do feel like we will get one of those top four seeds with the double bye, but yeah, just what are your thoughts going into ACC tournament as these next two final weekend series kind of comes up?
I'm still going to hold strong on what we talked about with Bendy the other day is, I just got to see us against Florida State, to be honest. I mean, this season could really, if you don't rebound from this weekend and, you don't fix things, because baseball is all about runs and who gets hot at the right time. That's really what it is, if you're in a slump towards the end of the season, you could be looking for shortened postseason, just like the Atlanta Braves had to deal with a couple of years ago in 2023 when it felt like they were setting the world on fire, but really came out cold in the postseason. You want to see this team rebound against Florida State and you want to see them play. You know, I was of the liking to say before that we didn't really, need to win the ACC and we needed to just stay healthy and play decent throughout it. I'm now leaning towards the liking is we need to set the ACC on fire when it comes to tournament. We need to come out there, we need to hit, we need to score with guys on score. We need to hit with guys and runners on. We need to pitch well. We need to come out. We need to play really well going into the regional.
Yeah,
And real
oh, go ahead. I didn't know
Sorry,
you.
but yeah, real quick before we do move on, I want to say, as a Panthers fan, I think we got the steal of the draft, and not the steal, but I think we got a fantastic player in Tetaroa McMillan, the best wide receiver in the draft, no question. I'm glad Bryce Young has got his weapons, and we can kind of, you know, put him on the pedestal rather than Xavier Legette. But I'm done. I'm not going to talk any more about the NFL.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. That's a good pick. But yeah, moving back to what we were talking about. Shout out Benny too. If you haven't, make sure you go watch our special episode with Benny that we filmed on Wednesday. But yeah, this weekend in Tallahassee, I really feel like it's a make or break situation. You got to see, are you going to bounce back from this past weekend where you got swept and then let it continue into Tallahassee? Or are you going to kind of flush that narrative and just kind of get back to business as usual? And then going into ACC tournament play, like you were saying, you just got to get hot and you need to really light it on fire just to show like, hey, like that happens, that's baseball, but we're back to normal fashion and just Clemson baseball. We're here to show out.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think it takes, fans a minute to maybe step back and realize the success Clemson baseball ha Like, I'm not here to, try to just, uh, I guess, put Clemson on too much of a pedestal here, but we do have to look at the realities. That's our first series loss all year, and ultimately these guys have found ways to win. Have we hit the ball really well this year? We haven't actually. We've struggled finding the right pitchers, and we're still able to have such a season to where we have only lost one series this year, and it's in nearly May. So I think there's a lot to say that, hey, maybe the team gets the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe we shouldn't just condemn them all and say that we're totally going to get bounced. Let's give Eric Bakich the benefit of the doubt. Let's give the team the benefit of the doubt that they have rightfully earned the entire year, and let's see if they can figure things out. Because worrying is not going to really do us any good.
Yeah, I feel like with us being media guys and we cover them so much, I just feel like we're just on it so hard that we're like any little thing that happens, we're like, oh, this and that. But I mean, like you were saying, you really got to see what these guys have done all season long, and yeah, just as postseason play comes up, just hoping they can turn it around from what we've been seeing lately. But going into NCAA tournament now, we're expected to host. We probably will host, but this past week we were the second national seed, but with how the weekend went, I'm waiting to see how that'll go. But we'll definitely host, and yeah, I just can't wait to see who we end up getting matched with.
I think next up is we're going to be talking about, seems like something that's really divisive right now on Clemson Twitter, and that's the Savannah Bananas game.
Yeah, I went last night, and man, it felt like another football Saturday. People were out tailgating, and Bananas ended up doing Tiger Walk, but it was kind of weird seeing the stadium full of yellow and then a little bit of hints of orange in there. But yeah, just a great night overall, and it's just crazy seeing a baseball game played in Death Valley, where obviously football's originally played, and then just that 190 short porch and left. That was just insane to me. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean that 190, that feels like a 9 and 10 left field. That's what it feels like, especially I wouldn't want to be first on that row over there. A ball comes flying over there. But I guess if you catch it, it counts as an out, right? Is that how the rules work there?
It's a foul ball. I feel like if a foul
Okay.
ball, yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, no, luckily I was on the first base side on that part of the stand, so luckily I didn't have to worry about getting belted by a ball. But yeah, I just hope everybody who was sitting out there was all right. I didn't hear anything about it. So, and I think the Bananas might use like different kind of baseballs. I'm not sure because they were like throwing them in the stands and
It
stuff.
didn't
So
it also didn't feel like I watched a little bit of it. It didn't feel like I saw many too hard line drives over there. It feels like they knew the situation and everything that was hit over there was softer contact.
yeah, they do a great job, man. Jesse Cole, the owner and creator of the Bananas, he just has a creative mind and an outside of the box mentality, and just a great show overall. But I think another big thing that happened during the or before the game was the Bananas got to run down the hill, and what's running down the hill without Dabo Sweeney, and you see them pull up on the bus, getting right there up there at the hill with the rock, and you're just waiting for it, and yeah, he ends up coming through the little crowd of them, and he ends up running down the hill with the Bananas, and yeah, just a great overall experience for sure.
Yeah, and I do hear a lot of hate on the Savannah Bananas, and I'm to the opinion of, hey, if it grows the game and it helps young people really get involved and love baseball, and it brings a little bit more of a crowd to baseball, I'm all in for it. Me personally, I don't need the circus acts and the carnival tricks and all the excitement going around the game to love baseball. I love baseball because it's competition. It's team against team. You don't know what's going to happen. I could be watching Pee Wee baseball and I could, be just as excited as watching it. That's what makes us love the game. And, me and you both, we played baseball our entire lives. We've been covering it for a long time. That's what makes us love the game is it's not about the carnival acts and the circus, although it does add a spice to it. But we love baseball just simply because it's competition. I think that's the competitor in us. That's what makes us want to do this. That's what made us play sports. And if the Savannah Bananas are growing the game that we love, and getting younger people and younger kids drawn into baseball, then I got to tip my hat to them.
Yeah, definitely love what those guys are doing, and they have many more games across the nation and stadiums. But the game last night, it was their largest ever recorded attendance with 81,000 plus in there. But yeah, like I said, it was a packed house, and I'm kind of hoping the same energy for this LSU game coming up, the first of the year, so the first of the college football season. So just yeah, definitely ready for that energy to be back in Death Valley for some Clemson football.
Definitely. I cannot wait. August 30 cannot come soon enough.
Yeah, you telling me. But moving along now, kind of wrapping things up. I want to touch on lacrosse. Obviously you can't forget about lacrosse. Those girls are very talented and very good. They ended up making it to the ACC tournament semifinals after they beat Duke, who Duke's always a tough team in lacrosse, and they would end up losing to UNC in the semifinals, which I mean UNC is really good. But now they're awaiting their NCAA tournament destination, and that selection show will be next Sunday at 9 p.m. on ESPNU. So make sure you're rooting for your Clemson women's lacrosse team because they definitely are fun to watch.
Yeah, I've got to, have got to get down or get up there really to go see one of their games. I'm hyped about, their progression so far.
Yeah, best of luck to those girls. They're always a competitive team, so I'm just hoping they can make a little run in the NCAA tournament.
Definitely.
So, kind of wrapping up now. As always, the upcoming schedule for this week. We're really light this week. We only have baseball, so no other midweek games going on. Softball's done, like I said. Lacrosse is done. So, baseball, they're still really the only sport left in regular season. So, and they don't have any midweek. So, like I said, they're traveling to Tallahassee to take on Florida State, and finally a regular Friday through Sunday series. And yeah, so for that schedule for the this coming up weekend on Friday, game one will be at 6 p.m. on the ACC Network Extra, and then Saturday will be at 6 p.m. again on the regular ACC Network, and then on Sunday wrapping it up for game three, 2 p.m. first pitch on back on the ACC Network Extra. So just a crucial weekend for Clemson baseball, and I'm hoping those guys can bounce back like we've talked about in this episode.
Definitely, definitely.
So, yeah, what are your final thoughts, Dawson? Got any final thoughts for this episode?
I would say Um, be on the lookout. Be on the lookout for the games this weekend. Since they really the only teams playing, and I don't anticipate a ton of news from anywhere else. The football transfer portal did close, so unless some guys put in late that we haven't heard about yet, I doubt we're going to be hearing about any of that. But other than that, just set your calendars. Get ready to watch next week's video as well. Of course, after you've watched this one, but
Yeah,
it's gonna be exciting.
yeah. I mean, just another year is going by, man, with Clemson athletics, and it's been super fun. I know I started in December, and then moving to now, it's just been so fun. But I'm ready for the whole complete year of it. So, just yeah, just this is only the start, and I mean, I know you're excited as well as I am. So, yeah, I just can't wait, man.
Yeah, me as well. Me as well.
All right, guys. Well, that'll do it for the sixth episode of the Tiger View podcast. And as always, it's been Gavin and Dawson. And we'll see you next time. And as always, go Tigers.
Go Tigers.